What's up, Fortnite fans? In this video, my friend TerraCrafter HC and I, Rage Harambe, will be breaking down all the seasons of Fortnite. This video may be a bit longer, but it's because we'll be breaking down 4 seasons. This is part 2, so it'll feature seasons 4 through 7. If you haven't already watched the first part with seasons 1 through 3, make sure to click the link in the description or the link in the top right corner of this video. You're all probably noticing the graphics aren't that great, but we hope it doesn't stop you from watching. The reason they're like that is because I left my wallet at home, and
Aren't you at
just
home right now, though?
but no, I okay. Anyways, let's just get into season 4. You got anything to start out, Prim?
Well, the Battle Pass was really hyped up, you know? It was one of the most hyped up ones, I think.
I do think that as well. I think the fact that this was the first season that they brought customizable skins in. So
Oh,
I think
yeah,
the fact that you could
definitely.
actually like do challenges and level up and then level them up as well to make them look cooler added kind of just this little style that made it, a little more fun to like level up.
Yeah, you
And
can make
yeah.
it, like, a little bit different, but still kind of the same skin.
Yeah, definitely. And it just made it cooler and, yeah, I thought it was great. And I think that was the reason why LTMs became so much more popular because people are just doing challenges to keep leveling up, to level up their skins as well. So I think that's what made them really popular and what made it so great for um, the customizable skins and all the LTMs and all that. So I think it was a really good idea of them to actually put that in.
And
So
also,
yeah,
the
I thought that was
skins
really
played a
cool.
role in the storyline. The
That,
Carbide was the hero,
yeah,
and
it's
the
true.
Tier 100 skin, Omega, was the villain
Yeah,
of the
and I think
storyline.
I think it kind of showed that the developers were like super invested in that plan though. They felt really invested in the storyline because they'd actually put time and effort into it. Like they put skins into the storyline that played a huge role in what the storyline would become next, which I thought was really cool, and I really um, thought that that was great. And this is also when like LTM started to become a huge thing in Fortnite. Like like we talked in last video, they'd played around with like the ideas for some LTMs, like the floor is lava, but that actually didn't come until season 8, just because of what the map was like. But remember,
Yeah.
seasons 1 through 3 were more primitive, so they didn't want to put a lot of LTMs in because people were still trying to grasp the idea, and I think putting an LTM in would have overwhelmed players, just because of a 50v50 that might be a bit harder for players because all they're doing is hiding behind trees. So I thought that that was, really nice that season 4 they kind of realized, oh, the community is actually kind of grasping the idea. People are like starting to build, and I
Yeah,
really,
people know how to play now. We
yeah,
can
it was great.
experiment more with LTMs and
Yeah,
different
and
other
the
LTMs.
the thing that was great was they collabed with Marvel to create one of the most hyped LTMs that Fortnite's probably ever seen. I think the fact that it was Thanos, that you could play as Thanos, was really cool
Yeah,
because you could literally
Thanos
jump
was really
around.
powerful and OP, and he
Yeah,
had a laser and
it's
like
true.
a
It's
Thanos
true.
smash,
But I
and he
thought
had a
that was
bunch of
funny.
health too.
Yeah,
And that
yeah,
was
he was
awesome.
just, it was just insane. Um, yeah, but I thought that the Infinity Gauntlet was a really cool idea because they kind of realized, like, other companies had kind of realized, oh, Fortnite's a big game now. Like, we could actually start collabing with them, and they could actually like sponsor us, and we could sponsor the, and I think that was kind of really cool. Um, Also, season 4, the fact that it was a live event for the storyline, that
Oh
was one of the
man,
coolest
that
things.
was awesome.
I remember being there and looking at that rocket and being like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool. You'd never seen it in another game." And I
I
think that's
almost
really
won the game that I saw the rocket in, but
really
I blew myself
wow.
up with a rocket
Dang, dude.
launcher like an idiot.
So, wait, you killed yourself in watching the rocket
Well, no,
with the
this was
rocket?
after the rocket,
This was after the rocket? Okay, okay. I
but it
was
was
really
still in the
confused there.
same game that the
Yeah.
rocket launched.
Yeah, and like one of the things was, the developers Season 3 they started to kind of vault weapons and nerf them, but they hadn't done it as much. And so like Season 4 they kind of started to do stuff. They vaulted the items like the crossbow and like they actually I don't know what they I think they buffed the rocket launcher actually. But I thought that that was really interesting. And they'd kind of realized it was kind of it kind of needed a change for like the rotation and movement, and so they added something really dumb, but it was
They
pretty
added
funny.
a vehicle known as the shopping cart. Like the
Yes,
ones you see at
yes.
Kroger.
Yep, yeah. And it was interesting, I gotta tell you. I mean, I remember having so much fun with that, and I was so sad when they took it out, but it was an instant hit to everyone, because people could
And
hit
also,
trick
at
shots
the
and
end
all
of
that.
season 4, we saved the best for last here, folks.
Yeah.
Playground mode.
Playground mode. Yeah. Playground mode was one of the most hyped ones, I think. And still to this day, I think Playground is probably one of the most fun, but at the same time, they kind of
They
have
kind of
messed that
messed
up.
up a
But
little
we
bit,
will talk
but
about that in future videos. I think that's
I
for
think this
another
is a
video.
topic for part 3 and 4.
Yeah. So I think that covers season 4 really well because honestly, season 4 was a great season and it just had a lot of stuff. I think that was a really great
hmm
season. Moving on
It
to
was definitely one of
season
my favorites.
Yeah, moving on to season 5. I mean, I gotta tell you, it wasn't my favorite season, but it wasn't the worst. It was
There's way
it was
worse
decent.
seasons than season 5.
Yeah, exactly. But one of the things was it wasn't as hyped as others. I think it was still hyped, but not as hyped as like, oh man, like season 3. You saw so many advertisements and it was a huge thing. Another thing was we saw a lot more map changes. Like this is
We
when we
added
started seeing,
they added Paradise Palms
yeah,
to replace Boise Buyer, and they
yeah,
added Lazy Links to replace Anarchy Acres.
yeah, and I think that that was probably like I loved going to Lazy Links. I think that it was just a great like location to drop just because it was something new and it was just something
I
really
didn't really
fun.
like it at first, but I grew
Really?
to love it in season 6
Yeah.
and 7.
Um, but then they added another vehicle that, well, it's a special one. But I'm more certain that a lot of more squads liked it just because you could actually hold more people. But the golf cart, I don't know. I mean, the golf cart was an interesting one. I think it was more underrated, but at the same time, it was not OP like the quad crasher. You know, it was still
Yeah.
usable, but it wasn't as great. But I thought that that
And
was
they
really
also
nice.
added rifts around the
Oh,
map.
baby,
There
rifts. I
was a
mean,
ton of them
these
in this
things,
season.
like, that changed everything. The movement, the rotation. Basically, if you really
You
wanted
not
to,
only had to worry about people coming in from the sides, but you also had to worry
yeah,
about your height above you.
yeah, you had to worry about people coming from the sky. And that was one of the interesting things. Like, if you remember the Durburger location near Pleasant Park, you could just drop there, get a weapon, and go in a rift to some other place like Tilted with a weapon, and you're already armed. Like, you don't have to worry about grabbing a weapon. So I thought that that was really interesting because it changed a lot of the stuff that you see, like the movement, and people had to actually watch out more, and they had to be a bit more self-aware about where they were placed on the map. Um, and I mean, this is where they like vaulted stuff like crazy. They added stuff in. It was insane. I mean, I'm not gonna go into all of it, but they vaulted a lot of weapons, but they also added
hmm
some new ones, which was actually a really great thing. I mean, they added the new SMG. I'm not a huge fan of it, but once you get used to it, it's decent. And but they also added the Compact SMG, which kind of just made up for it because that's a
Yeah, the
beautiful weapon.
Compact
I
SMG
mean,
is my
just
favorite SMG,
yeah,
besides Attack
yeah.
SMG, of course.
But also in this season, I mean, I think they did really well with this season with the LTMs because they brought in Getaway, which is still here today and is one of my favorite modes. They brought in
I wish I played Getaway in season
yeah,
5. I didn't
they
play it too much.
they brought in Fly Explosives, which I remember playing. It's an interesting mode. It's interesting. Not great, but it was okay. Um, but yeah, and I thought another thing was the battle pass
The
which
Battle
it was
Pass had
interesting.
toys.
Yeah,
Like
they had
things
toys.
kids
They
play
had
with.
freaking they had a freaking basketball that you could throw around at people. Like that
I
that
believe they
was
had a golf ball as well.
yeah, they did. Yeah, you could actually go on into Lazy Links and try to get a hole in one with one of those. So I thought that was pretty funny how they did that, and I think that new cosmetics was just
And
kind
Kevin
of
the
funny.
Cube randomly just showed up in Paradise Palms.
I gotta tell you, that was one of the most scary things I'd ever seen. I remember visiting him the first time and I died because I just bounced on him the whole time and then died.
It looked like a big cancer bump just on the map, rolling
Sure,
around.
yeah,
But it was definitely the antithesis of cancer, in
yeah,
my
and
opinion.
I gotta tell you, I I liked the season, but then when I figured this out, this season was actually when ghost shots became a thing. I'm not gonna go into it
Oh
fully,
man.
but I have to tell you, I have a just
Basically,
passion
with a
for
lot of
hating
weapons,
ghost shots.
whenever you hit somebody and the shot doesn't do damage, that's what a
Yeah,
ghost
and
shot
it was
is.
most common with the shotguns, which they actually, that was when they were actually trying to nerf the shotguns, and they nerfed them pretty good
They
because
nerfed
they
them
gave them,
pretty bad.
yeah, they gave them ghost
They
shots,
got
so
way
it was
underpowered.
great. But yeah, and this was also when building became a lot more welcomed. Like people were starting to grasp it. Like everybody, like people could start building triple ramps. They weren't on the verge of doing 90s, but most people could try at least. I mean, it was a bit slow, but they could still do it. But
Yeah,
I think that that about covers season five. I gotta tell you, season five was a it was all around basically for me. I thought that it had its moments, it was great, and then it had just some of those where it's no, just why. But
yeah.
yeah,
Season 5,
so
I kind of have mixed feelings about it, but I think
yeah,
we can move on to Season 6 now.
yeah. Season six, this was probably one of I don't know. I think it was probably one of my most favorite seasons because it became cross-platform. It was one of the first, if not the first game to come become cross-platform. If I'm thinking about
And
it, with
also, this
all
was around the time
platforms.
when the Switch version of Fortnite came out.
Yeah, and it just brought friends together, and I think it just increased the fan base because of that idea that they had expanded on it. Because they actually wanted to bring it in, but I just don't think that they had a lot of the resources that they could to kind of go for it. But yeah, and this is when the uh, the storyline began to progress with Kevin the Cube because it actually,
Hmm.
I mean, I don't, was it weeks or was it days? I don't really remember for sure, but he
I think
just
it was about a week or two,
a week, yeah, so a
if
couple
I
of
know
weeks.
what you're talking
He
about.
was just rolling around the map, just rolling
Yep.
around the map to different locations, kind of
And he
just
created, like,
runes.
places like
Runes, yeah, like
bubbles
dark. Yeah, it
within
was weird
runes.
because people could like go in there and jump around, which I think that was
But then in
probably one of the
Season
more fun
6,
things.
they turned into, like, kind of corrupted areas,
Yeah,
and there were
yeah,
shadow things.
yeah,
I don't really know what
and
to call them.
but yeah, this is when like after Kevin the Cube had moved to Loot Lake, and then it just basically, I what happened then actually? I think
Well, Kevin the Cube, I think he ended up controlling a floating island.
yeah, he
And
did.
that
Well, he
floating
he
island
no,
had
I
the
know he
tornado.
created the floating island. I just don't remember. I thought he went into the lake. He like seeped into the lake and then it took a I don't know,
Yeah.
but that was an
There
interesting
was a
part.
whole live event, actually.
Yeah, and
There was like a little
yeah,
butterfly,
that was it.
and
That was
then
it.
that created a leaky lake.
Yeah, but I thought that that was I the floating island was probably one of my most favorite locations
It moved
in
around the map. It
season
wasn't
6.
just
Yeah,
stationary.
but
It
I
was in
thought that that
many
was really
different
cool
places.
because that I just thought that was fun.
And they added
And
the haunted castle as well.
yeah,
A great minor addition.
the community became so much more skillful. I'm pretty sure that this is just when this was basically if you're a noob, you're kind of screwed because
Hmm.
people could just start building basically. I mean, it was easy for everyone, I think. I I felt bad for the noobs because going into season 6, it felt nice, but at the same time, when you got killed by someone that was doing triple ramps, it felt really overwhelming, and I think that's kind of why a lot of the noobs kind of drifted away from it because it kind of, you know, happened. It just going against those people, it's not really that fun.
I mean, season
But
6 also added a great variety of new weapons and items.
yeah, true. I mean, they added so many great things, but they also added some bad things like the quad launcher,
Yeah, and the six
turrets,
shooter.
six shooter. It was just not that great.
But they
for
also added some good
weapon-wise.
things, maybe like the heavy
Yeah,
AR and the
yeah.
epic and legendary pump
And
shotguns.
one of the things at the very end of the season, people started to see what was it? It was an iceberg. It was all the
Like the
way out in the sea.
Titanic.
Y Sure. Yep. The Titanic. Okay. You know that. Okay. Anyways, um, which would actually relate to Polar Peak becoming a thing in season 7. Well, it wasn't just Polar Peak, but the iceberg would turn into Polar Peak, but it would also bring Happy Hamlet and Frosty Flights, if I'm
It would
remembering
also
correctly.
take down with it Greasy Grove and Flush
Greasy Grill.
Factory.
Yep. Flush
Rest in
Factory wasn't
peace.
my favet, but it
I
was
mean, yeah,
okay.
Flush
It was
Factory. It
alright.
was alright.
Rest in peace, Flush Factory. It's just sad.
I took the best dumps
Anyways,
in that giant toilet.
okay, well, moving on to season 7. What a way to end season 6. I think that's a good way to end season 6. We're going to go on to season
Yep.
7. This is when they added creative mode. And honestly, this was the primitive time for creative mode. Like, this was the new stuff. You didn't really have that much that you have today. I mean, and the fact is because it was only season 7 and now it's season 11 that we're doing this in, and you have so many more prefabs, you have so much more to do, you have so much more weapons to choose from, which is
But
actually
this was
great.
where it all started.
This is where it all started, and I gotta say, I think a lot of people were really excited about it, but I think that it died out really quickly just because of how well it played. It was not really user friendly. You could get disconnected pretty quickly, just randomly, and it kind of sucked. But I thought that it was kind of great. I thought it was okay. But it also featured a small area on the map that was called the block that had community maps made by some of the players that just really liked making maps. I thought that was really cool. But season 7 brought in some of my favorite locations:
They
Polar
brought in
Peak,
Polar Peak,
Happy
Happy
Hamlet,
Hamlet,
and Frosty Flights.
and Frosty Flights.
Yep, and it just changed the bottom left corner of the map because it was like no one had ever seen this really. Like this was a snowy part of the map. Like it was kind of new, which I
This
really
wasn't
like
something
that.
people had seen before.
Yeah, because it added diversity to the map. It added
Yeah, there's different
Yeah.
colors now.
Yeah, sure. And like that just made it more fun because you had an interesting environment to fight in. Because at one point, like I remember being in like a part of like Polar Peak, and I got off the mountain, and like there's just this grass and snow just sitting right next to each other. It just
It
made it
looked so
interesting. I
beautiful.
thought it was interesting. But the battle pass, it was better than season 6 in my opinion, and I think that kind of goes for a lot of people because season six's battle pass wasn't great, but I
I
don't
mean,
think
they
it
did
was.
introduce gun wraps, but
Yeah,
those aren't really that
but
hyped.
considering how much they didn't really advertise, how much advertising they didn't really advertise season 7, but it still did pretty well. Like it wasn't terrible. I didn't see, they didn't advertise it like season 3, but they still, did a decent amount of advertising. It wasn't, but it wasn't as much as they'd done for past seasons. But I thought that that was interesting. And this is when the community became majorly skilled. I gotta tell you, this was
This was a really try-hard season.
this really was. There were more seasons to come, and we'll break those down. But this season is basically the start of. I don't want to really say it because I don't think that
I
everybody in the
feel like it
community is toxic.
started kind of I guess a pattern of toxicity. You know, it's
Yeah,
the levels started to rise.
there's some great people that play this game, but there's also some very mean people that play this game. So it just there's a variety, but most of it became kind of toxic because everyone wanted to just be better than one another. Um, season
They
7,
added some pretty cool stuff. You
but
know,
they also added the X4 Stormwing. I gotta tell you,
one of
I literally
it was
okay,
fun at first, but
it
then
was fun. It was really fun.
they were really
Well,
overpowered though,
it
and over time they got nerfed to the
this kind of
point where they
goes
weren't really that
yeah,
usable.
this kind of goes for
They
every
weren't
weapon
fun.
though. You can say that a weapon is great because you like it, you like killing people with it, but when you get killed by the weapon, you hate it because you got killed by that weapon, and you're gonna
I
say
think
that it's
that
OP
was
because
very perfectly said.
And that's what happened with the X4 storming. Everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, I can laser people with this. This is great." And then when someone uses it on you, you hate it because it's stupid. Because it was, but no one had realized. But that's kind of what happened. This storyline was an interesting one. I I don't really know. It was a bit confusing to me because you kind of started to see, like, at the very end, you started to see some hotspots coming around the map. I remember those.
Yeah,
It was really weird, but
hotspots.
I think it's because the prisoner had unleashed his power somehow and had kind of created lava under the map, or
Yeah, he
yeah,
kind of
and then,
did his own thing.
Season 8 created a freaking volcano somehow, which, yeah,
Yeah,
but um, I thought that that was an interesting season, and it was very good. Well, I think that's kind of a good way to wrap up season 7 and the video.
I think so too.
Thank you guys for
Seasons 4 through
watching.
7.
If you guys watch fully through, make sure to like and subscribe, and remember the link to part 1 is in the description if you haven't watched it yet. I don't know why you but
I don't know
it's
why you
up
would
there.
watch part 2 without part 1, but
Anyways, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next video.